All right, so the the game I think now has a name. Yeah, that was the thing that took me the longest out of everything to do. Um, I think I'm gonna go with access granted. Um, the full name I think I went with was uh, access granted, redistributing the digital future. Um, access being hacking access to a location or server, and granted, of course, being getting in. And then the second half of it, the sort of tagline for it, is a reference to uh, I believe it was William Gibson's comment that the future is already here; it's just not equally distributed. Considering the aim of this game is to seize access to large corporation systems and redistribute them to yourself and or your client. Um, that seemed like an appropriate kind of play with that phrase. Um, so I've named the game. There's room for changing it if it needs to be. But I mean, it works. It was the best I could come up with at the time. The Speaking of naming, I also named all 21 of my corporations and had a little bit of fun doing that. I mean, I made a blanket template where I just brainstormed up a series of names. I did a lookup of some lists of names of corporations or things like that have happened in the past. And so you get things like I didn't, some of them I didn't use. So I've got sort of like templates I can use for generating more, which is good because I'm going to need, if I do an expansion set, it's going to need another 21 corporations. And a third expansion set will probably be another 21 on top of that. So you're talking at least another 42 corporation names. And so being able to take like a generic surname for some of them, especially like a finance company, to be able to say like that's a company that's going to accumulate over a lot of rich white men whose legacy is going to be having their name on a practice or business. So a lot of those kinds of things are going to be like Johnson, Sullivan, and Stevens. Uh, and so it's just like that one that happens. You can also have like a retail or goods companies who's like uh, Ericsson Electronics, um, Ericsson's Electronics Warehouse, and that can get big enough. It's You can also take some of those surnames and you can cut them short, like the what is it? The Waltons became Walmart, and an expansion on the Walmart is Sam's Club, which is they were founded by Sam Walton, so Walmart, Sam's Club. That's where some of that comes in. So using names like that, but if you also look at things like it's not a major corporation necessarily, but like a Wendy's is sort of named after the founder's daughter, I believe. And you have like the snack cake Little Debbie. So like naming it after children in the family, um, and so that's one sort of class of naming corporations that you can do. But I also did a few things where you build a list of endings and beginnings, and so you have a couple things like you can do uh, first letters names. So like in the science fiction franchise Dune, uh, the major conglomerate for harvesting spice was called Choam, and it's CHOAM, I believe. And each one of those letters stands for something. And so you can do something like that. Surnames of families, um, child's names, mythic names. So Atlantis, Dionysus, uh, well, I mean, uh, uh, Chiron. Um, yeah, I mean, basically, like it doesn't have to be like Greek and Roman mythology, but I mean that's something that you're going to see a lot of in Western areas. So, like the United States, English-speaking worlds, the Romance language countries, um, you're more likely to see the Greco-Roman mythology take place there. You can like the what is it? Bluetooth is supposedly its symbol is a rune, and it gets its name supposedly from uh, one of the leaders of North 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 Norse people, which comes from the word Nor, which is one of the four dwarves that supposedly held up the sky, and he happened to be the one that was in the north direction. So the Norman is the Northman. So Norse is the people of the north. Um, so Norway would be the North Way. um, but yeah, you can snag some of the like European and Norse and Celtic mythologies and grab a character, a place, or an object and drop those in with some symbolism for your logos. Now, I don't have any logos that I'm going to do for these yet. I was really just going for like like I have like bonsai energy, and I thought it would be interesting maybe to do windmills because it's divine wind, at least from my understanding of it. So like a wind energy, um, and like Blaze Telecom. Uh, I could combine a couple symbols for that, but like telecom, I think I'm probably just going to do like a Wi-Fi a symbol or a telephone lines, like a telephone tower, or in the case like I have Blaze Telecommunications or Blaze Telecom and Vox Tech as my two telecoms, and Vox could just be a bright colored circle with the word Vox written in it, and then Tech outside the box, the circle, and that's all you need for it. World Tech, the Fenris group, Norse mythology there. Absolute Solutions are my control corporations, and transportation or like fast track, ANG. So that would be sort of like it stands for air and ground, and it's ANG National is the name of the corp. And then Express Transport. A lot of the two of those at least are implications of speed being the important factor. And when you're dealing with transporting goods or people, um, being able to transport them rapidly is the desire. Bonsai Energy, National Power, Advanced Energy, Ace Electric, And as I go through most of these, what you're going to see is that, I mean, it was sort of unintentional, but it was like something I checked after the fact, thinking about what I was going to do. If I was going to do a logo of the energy, like a lightning bolt or a um, power lines kind of situation, um, as the logo with its initials on the logo, then it would be important to not have too many with the same initials. So like BE for bonsai energy. Um, there's nothing else with a BE, which I mean, I think I did pretty good with that. Um, some of them are going to be kind of long, especially when you get down to Lewis and Russell Finance, Francis King and Andrews, uh, the Charrington Foundation. That's sort of a joke about 1984. Owens and Armstrong, and those are the financials. And then with like corporations for goods and services stuff, we have like Crystal Water, Federal Wholesalers, Variety, Chemtech, and Simply Good. Like those seem like they could be corporation names. Now I have a whole list of other things I didn't get to where it was like mythic names, and like part of it you can see in some of those where it's like Lewis and Russell Finance. That's a finance company. So just using the name of the industry type that you're using gives you a few things to play with. But I mean, there's also things like Enterprises, Industries, Incorporated, National, Dynamics, Group, Foundation, Gen, which is just another way of saying group essentially, or generation if you really wanted to do it. Uh, Products, Center, and Place. So like Michael's Place or Innovation Place. And you can, one of the things I did try to do was I tried to look up a list of buzzword, like like you hear people joke about going to these meetings that they have to go to for work, and it's like buzzword bingo. They're just all these synergistic, yeah, so on and so forth. And you just grab a bunch of those frickin' things and start tacking on national synergistic foundation, and you're good to go. Like if you really wanted to slap together a huge list of like cheap, simple names, you could do that. I want mine to at least sound like they could be reasonably uh, expected to appear as corporations. But we'll see how it goes when I hit a point where I'm trying to do 42 more of them. I might make a few joke ones. I did think about doing Acme for like Looney Tunes, but I don't know if there's a if I'd get in trouble for using that in a game. But so yeah, I named corporations. I'm gonna go very simple with logos at first, but the artist in me kind of wants to really, really do some artwork for certain companies. And now that I've got names for them, like being able to say like World Tech, do a picture of a globe. The Fenris Group, a dog in like a wolf in chains. Um, Fast Track, you could do something with a. It's like a knockoff of an Amtrak, but you could do a fast and have the T for the fast and the T for the track be made out of railroad uh, rails, or uh, make them train cars or something like that. And A and G, you could do A above and blue and ground and green, and it's air and ground national. And make them part of a single shape, and then just like those kinds of things. They're sort of like they're calling to me to play with. Like I think that's the thing that's making me go so slowly now, is doing the artwork. I really like. I want to do good artwork for this, and I'm not always going to be able to do like. I want to get a playable version out to you, and have it so that people can play a demo game of this. And speaking of, I've got everything else worked out on the mechanics, the components. The artwork is the big thing left behind, and once that's done, getting it out to you guys. I think I mentioned that I was looking at a potential. I have a list of see if I can pull it up here. Yeah, so I have 5 sites that you can go to as a person who creates things digitally and pay to down. Like people they can buy your stuff, your digital content, out of a web store. Some of them are like it's something you can add to a website that you have. But some of them are also just sort of like some of them do have some hosting. And most of the ones, there are like 12 or so of these kinds of companies out there that I know of. But some of them are like, oh no, this is for actual professionals, which I'm not. I'm just a creator who's creating things and wants to share them with the world and maybe make a little money doing it. I'm not at a level where like some of these services, if you want to have their service to sell your digital goods, it's like anywhere between $10 and $108 a month. I'm not paying $108 a month to sell 2 copies of this game, or if I put the animation I make into a digital file that people can download if they wanted to. Like I mean, if I did my book, my animation, my board game, um, and a digital product for sale, and then some of my music for sale when I create that for that particular aspect, or some of my paintings or prints of my digital artwork, um, and my video games. Like, even if every one of those 7 categories of items was something I made available for sale digitally, I'm not a business. I'm not going to be making $500 of sales per month. And I feel like that sort of has to be the minimum of what I would earn per month from some of those sites in order to justify $50 to $100 monthly cost to have the ability to sell through them. But I don't have to do that because there's things like Fetch app, Sellfy, that's Sellfy, Simple Goods, which if you just heard me talk about naming some of my corporations for my game, you might remember one called Simply Good. And then there's Cells, which is Selz, and then there's Plasso, Plasso, and different ones offer different capabilities and services. Some of them are like subscription based, and then there's some of them that are really just like a downloadable one-time thing, and some of them allow you to do physical goods, and some do subscription or memberships, donations, and so like There are some of them that are definitely interesting to look into for potential uses in the future. But the thing that keep coming across in my mind is like that that's great and all, but I really think what I'm gonna do is just put it up as a free PDF on my website. And like not everybody has a website, but there are places where you could um, make the PDF or image files available to people. And I want to just make them available for essentially free. It's sort of free. It's sort of shareware, donationware is one of the terms people use for it. So like you don't have to pay to get it, but if you get it and you like it and you want to support the creation of that kind of thing, here's where you can support that. And there are a couple ways to do that. I believe you can set up um, a a payment through things like PayPal, or you can do a like a Patreon account, or a kick. You can do Kickstarter too. I don't think this is worth Kickstarter yet. Um, and I don't think I'll ever get this game into a position where Kickstarter is the way I want to do it. I may end up making it possible to buy pieces to make it easier because, like, the board, being able to print the pieces out and glue it down to a piece of board and use it that way, that's that's pretty fine. That works that way. Um, the tiles for the corporations are sort of similar. You can do the same thing. Um, but the cards are the tricky one. And so I'm thinking what I'm probably going to end up doing for that is make a deck of cards through the online like games website that other people can download and use those, or purchase those cards if they want to. I will still make um, cards that you can download for free and print out yourself and cut them out and use them for your gameplay. That I'm still going to do because I don't want you to have to buy anything to play this game. But when it comes to the point where if you think you'll probably play this game again, I want it I want a nicer deck of cards. Like my deck of cards that I'm using for my prototype set, those are just index cards cut into pieces and used. That's fine for a little play testing, but if I ever play this game in any real amount, I want to be able to have a deck of cards that I can shuffle easily. There's not some irregularities in the like this one's slightly larger at the bottom than it is at the top, and so it sticks out in the deck. And like this one didn't cut cleanly at the corner, so it's got a notched corner on it. Like I I know part of the rule of designing a game is you have to expect that your players aren't going to cheat. That's just you have to design things with the expectation that people will play your game without wanting to cheat to do it. I get that. I get that's how that all works. But it also shouldn't be easy to inadvertently look at the deck of cards, see that it's missing a corner, and know that's a card you don't want to take. Like it's unconscious, and like if you suddenly know, oh, I've had that card in my hand before, and that is a card that's not going to do me any good right now. You're not consciously going like, oh, well, let them get it. Like you're just gonna like, I'm trying to do this with what I'm doing, and that's not in my current interests. Do you get what I mean? It's one of those knowing the situation you're in more than you should affects how you react to the situation. And do you just, if you look at that, you know it, and you feel like, well, if knowing what that card is cheating, then I have to take that card no matter what, even if I know, like, how do you do that? You don't get past that at that point. So like where I'm going with this is I may make a deck of cards uh, for gameplay that are um, not too expensive. So if you make the boards and like you can make you can print all the parts out yourself at home and play them. But eventually, if the game has enough interest, making the deck of cards available for sale for bare minimum of price. Like I don't want them to be like a $15 deck. But if I can find a company that'll do a decent price on a 80 card deck or something like that, well, maybe I could get away with the, yeah, probably still be like 80 cards. Um, I might be able to actually do the corporations as cards and uh, do a 79 card deck, because that's the other thing I had to keep in mind is the betrayal cards have to be available, and I did have 75 cards for the base deck, and then I had 3 rules cards, but that's because my handwriting was big enough that it could be on 3 cards. I could easily consolidate that down to 1 card, and then so that'd be 76 cards, and then 3 betrayal cards, so 79, and then 21 to get you all the way up to 100. 100 cards in a deck would get you corporations and cards. And component wise, the game's not much more complicated than that. That's really what we need is the hack cards, the trouble cards, corporations, and the board. That's really what the game is. And so like the hack cards and trouble cards come out to a 75 card deck, along with the betrayal cards and the rules card. That gets you to 79. And yeah, it's sort of 20 cards after that for corporations, but that works. I mean, I can kind of make that work. It depends on what it costs to order those decks from certain companies. If it essentially a 50, if the 52 card uh, uh, deck is the standard, 104 cards would be 2 decks. If I can get the cost down to $12 to $14, maybe. That just leaves the boards to be done, and that can be the digital download, print your own board situation. Because I imagine getting those boards printed anywhere would be not cheap. They're unusual size, unusual shape, and yeah, it makes it more complicated to do that. There might be a way to do that, but yeah, like I was saying, the the 5, 6 companies that the 5 companies that I know that I could use as websites for selling stuff. Like I may do that for something in the future, but I think I'm just going to make this a file and figure out a website that I can put up that people can download and set up a Patreon account where people can support it if they want to. Um, I have to figure that out because I do some other things on a different channel that I run that people have told me I should set up a Patreon account for that channel. I wonder if it's possible to do multiple Patreon campaigns under the same account without cross-linking this and the other channel I use. That's it's an interesting thing I'll have to look into. But for the meantime, uh, I've got to do the artwork, and the hurdle for me on the artwork right now is my tendency to want to keep fiddling with it and make it better and better. It's one of the problems I have as an artist is never feels like I'm done the piece of work that I'm working on because I can always tweak it just a little bit more. And there are times where that comes back to bite me in the butt. So what I need to do is work out what I need as artwork for this to be a playable game and be at least kind of neat, and then let it go. I can always do a better design round 2, especially if I end up making a deck of cards with the corporations and the base deck that people can get. Um, yeah. That's just sort of like if well now I'm thinking like if there's a if there's a 52 card deck model that if I do 2 of those decks I get my 100 cards plus 4. I would only need 101 for the betrayal industry, the corporation cards, a rules card. That would leave me 3 cards that I could use to uh, make the basic shape of the board on the card so that if you wanted to, in the deck of cards, it will have like a blueprint for making your own board. That's not a bad idea. That's entirely viable. That might be a cheaper way to do this whole thing rather than trying to get somebody to print the boards. It still feels a little bit like a cop out, but I mean, other than that, like, and there's the possibility of getting like a poster print from, say, Walmart of the board. But again, that runs you about $8 to $12 for roughly what I'm talking about for size and shape of board. It's not always ideal. I guess it really comes down to what fits on what. Yeah, that's the other part of doing the artwork for this. Doing the board artwork is going to come down to really like what fits with regular playing pieces. Like I don't want to make the individual squares on the board too small for a playing piece, but if I make them larger as pieces go, then you run the risk of uh, having to have a truly massive board. Like the board I have for this game over here, that has that's about the edge of where you want to go size wise for this type of game. you get too much bigger than that, then it just takes up too much room and it's not practical. At least in my mind. Something that's 3.5 to 4 feet long seems a bit much. But I mean, people do play miniature combat on large tables, so. Alrighty, so that's sort of where I am with this right now. I'll see what I can do for artwork by tomorrow. I've still got a lot on my plate of other things I need to take care of too. So this may be an update at the end of the month with the other projects. But I've got everything worked out. So look for that on the 30th and 31st. And I'll be updating then. Tomorrow starts product and or service category, which I believe this month I'm going to go for product. No guarantees. I might brainstorm up a beauty of a service that I think would work better. But tomorrow is the first day of brainstorming that. And then a week of that. And then what was it, the last week of this month? So tomorrow starts product or service, which would end on Tuesday next week. And starting then will be the 2 days of updates on the finishing of all the projects for the 30th and 31st. And then I think I'm going to take Friday and Saturday off before I started on the 3rd with food week project, and then the 10th with art, and then 17th a video game. And then I think probably from the 24th to the 28th will be finishing up anything that needs to be finished up before we start again on the 3rd of March. And then that'll probably be a fiction book of some kind, maybe. And then another type of video, which will be easier than animation, I hope. And then another tabletop game of some kind. Then another product or service. And that one will finish pretty much on the end of the month. There'll be like one Sunday. I might just start that Sunday right before like March 31st. I'll start March 31st maybe as the second food. And then maybe a music on April 7th. Not sure what I'm doing yet for that. And then 14th will be a video game, I believe. Something like that. And then we'll see where we go from there. Because that leaves me with the 21st through the 30th of April. It's a week and a half, roughly, of doing more. So I might just use that as a health and wellness project. But that's where we are right now, and we've sort of hit the end of the evening here. We're at about 40 minutes. It's a good place as any to cut it. I will be back tomorrow I will be posting tonight for my regular updates. This is going to be a product or service that I am reviewing. I will probably be using this camera because I still need to work on a better camera. And then Wednesday should be a taste test video. It might be one of the old ones I have. And then after that will be artwork. And after that one will be a video game review, which may be my second in that category. I've got some of them in backlog that I can use. And then that should finish up at the end of this month. So, like, this week should be tonight will be technically Tuesday will be product or service, food on Wednesday, Thursday, and then art on Friday, Saturday. And then video game will be like Monday, Tuesday area. And then maybe just sort of like an update on the 31st. And then I got a lot going on right now. It's hard for me to keep track of it. I really need to start writing this stuff down, hitting the wall here. Oh, and just so you know, it's a lovely balmy, well, this afternoon at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it was minus 21 wind chill. So I'm kind of curious if I step outside right now, will I get instant frostbite? Not really looking forward to checking it out, but I may have to take a step outside. So stay warm, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you tomorrow, I guess. Oh, yeah, tomorrow we have Views Day. It's Tuesday, so it's Views Day. I think we're looking at Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier? That's not the Captain America. It's Winter Soldier, and then Civil War. Or is it Civil War and Winter Soldier? No, it's Winter Soldier. Anyway, that's what I'm watching tomorrow, sometime between 8 and 10. No. What did I do last time? I think I did 6 and 8, roughly. 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. tomorrow. I will see if I can schedule that to show up. I keep saying I'll do that, and I keep struggling to figure it out and not giving the time or effort into it because I got other things that I would need to work on. But I'll try to do that for tomorrow. All right. Now, serious this time. Take care of yourselves.